Church. I'll ask him to lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Shadid if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand? And in speaking with Pastor McKee this morning, he informed me that they are now offering Hispanic and American Indian services at their church. Thank you for expanding your reach, Pastor.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation. Father in heaven, we thank you this morning because it is a fact of life that when we wake up in each day, we are faced with opportunities, and every opportunity for us will be one that will shape and develop the lives of those around us as well as our own. And for this council to come together, and these who come before them, looking for ways to better the city, looking for ways to better the lives of our children as they grow, and to give us the confidence to believe, Lord, that in this place, we will not only show love and respect for one another, we'll not only show a desire to get along in the work and the ministries that we do, but there will be a desire to honor God. You have said that the nation that honors you will be blessed. I believe that applies to a city as well. And may Oklahoma City experience, through your blessings and through the wisdom that you give these who will make decisions today, we will be a better people. We will acknowledge you and your presence with us. And we will continue each and every day to make certain that in our life and the things we do, others will matter. When we do that, our decisions will be good. For that, we'll offer you the praise for who you are. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the meeting to order. We begin with a couple of appointments. I'll look for a motion on item 3A and B.
Second.
All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 4 is the Journal of Council Proceedings. 4A is to receive the journal for March 17th. 4B is to approve the journal for March 10th. All right, any comments or questions on the journal? All right, cast your votes. It passed unanimously. And item 5 is revocable permits. I understand item 5A1 needs to be struck from the agenda. Is there a motion to strike? Cast your votes on 5A1. It passed unanimously. 5A2 is a request from Gatewood Elementary School to hold the Gateway Gator 5K. It's been sanctioned by the U.S. Track and Field Association, and it looks like Gina Jones and Leah Anderson are here to give us more information. If you ladies would come forward. And we will need your name and address just for the record.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gina James, and I'm a teacher at Gatewood Elementary. This is Leah Anderson, the principal, and the address of our school is 1821 Northwest 21st, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73106.
Great. And tell us about your event.
It is the Gatewood Gator 5K, and it's to continue raising money to transform our playground area. Last year, through our 5K and our Kaboom grant and some other partnerships like with the Oklahoma City Community Foundation, we've been able to build a playground and put in a track. We're getting soccer goals, we've put in trees. And so this year we're working, our main focus is on the pre-K area. So to get them some new playground equipment that's more focused to their age, more things that they can play on.
We do not have a city park within 1 mile of the Gatewood neighborhood, and so we're kind of trying to make our playground a city park and inviting the families to join in for healthy lifestyles, and as well as our students, of course, at Gatewood.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for doing that. It's in Ward 6, Meg.
It's been so nice to see how the neighborhoods, and not just Gatewood, but
Yes.
Plaza District and Clason
Exactly.
Tanpan have all rallied around to make that playground really a special place for the neighborhood. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd move approval of the event.
All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Item 583 is from 8th and H to hold the 8th and H Night Market. Anyone here representing this organization today? Yeah,
I think
come on
Brian's here
forward.
today.
Let's get an update on 8th and H.
Morning. We're gearing up for, my name's Brian Bergman, live at 625 Northwest 22nd, Mesta Park. And we're gearing up for our first H&8 of this season. We'll be going for 9 months again. We'll go from March until October. Our footprint will be roughly the same as it's been in the past, from 6th Street until 10th Street on Hudson. We're involving a whole lot more of the neighbors. That way we can kind of relieve some of the congestion of all the people, because we've just, our biggest adventure in this whole thing is that every year we anticipate growth, and it keeps exceeding our expectations. So we're trying to continue growing in a healthy and sustainable way. So that's kind of our goal, and including more of our neighbors and spreading out to the rest of the city as well. So that'll be March 27th.
All right, and it's the final Friday of each month, continuing now and through October. And so this Friday, a week from Friday.
This Friday.
This Friday,
Friday
the
will be the
27th, is the final Friday of the month. Okay.
Yeah.
And Mayor, there are a couple of extra things attached to it this particular Friday.
Right.
It's the official opening of the OCU Law School, and they're going to have food trucks and things surrounding their campus. There's also a new event that Allison Barta-Bailey's been working on called Industrial Flea. It's going to be a 2-day kind of flea market. I don't want to call it, in Oklahoma we call it a swap meet from time to time, but a kind of a very fun flea market that's also going to be a new event. So, and I looked at the list. How many food trucks do you have?
Right now we have right at 30 trucks, but then we also there will be more at Industry Flea, and there will be more at Blue Garden, and there will also be some at OCU. So that way, again, with 40,000, with the crowd that we've had in that small space, we've tried to figure out ways that we can diversify and kind of give that crowd away a little bit, because the goal is we want people, one of the things we learned last year that we were really excited about that I think you guys would find interesting, a lot of the restaurants in the area would call us and they would let me know that that's their biggest night of the month. That's always a huge bump in their business, and we'd have phone calls from Paseo, from Plaza, from Deep Deuce, from Uptown, from downtown, from all over the place, saying that they've got a big bump in the crowd. And they're never sure if we're going to be excited about that or not. And we actually are really excited about it, because the whole goal of it is we want people to come out. Like, it doesn't have to be our 4 blocks. It doesn't have to be our thing. The thing is we want people to come downtown. We want people to have something great to do. We want it to be a good excuse to come out and bump into people.
Something that we're struggling with a little bit, and we're working with Public Works, and is keeping people safe as they're walking across all those intersections. Now that we've got this development on the north side of 10th Street, people are kind of moving back and forth between Blue Garden and H and 8th, and so we're talking about making that. I also, if I could, just recognize Drew and our staff. This has been a challenging event, and
absolutely.
really appreciate all of the work that our staff has done. Putting something this massive together is hard. It takes a lot of cooperation. So thanks, Drew. Really appreciate it. I'd move.
Okay, is there a second? All right, cast your votes. And item 5A3 passes unanimously. Thanks and good luck. Continuing with our Ward 6 festivals theme, the OK Garden Fest is going to host the OKC Garden Festival on May 9th. Is there anyone here representing this organization?
I didn't see anybody here. This is, I'd make a motion to approve. This is over at the Farmers Market, which should be just great fun. So,
Second.
Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. And item 5A5 is a request from Tierra Media to host the Ready Gazette Go Festival. And Bill and Linda are here. Bill, you're going to come up and speak?
Good morning. I'm Bill Bleakley, 3701 North Chartel. This year, Oklahoma Gazette is putting on its inaugural Health and Fitness Festival in Myriad Gardens. It will be this Saturday with beautiful springtime weather in the 70s and no rain. It's going to be an exciting event. We've got some major providers of fitness endeavors in town to provide instruction and activities in the west end of Myriad Gardens. We've got some healthy food trucks lined up to provide some good things. Whole Foods is doing a cooking demonstration. We've got the river folks with their rowing machines. We've got Pilates and yoga and you name it, instructions going on so the public can come down and experience these things and pick out a new fitness routine.
Bill, the Gazette's had stuff going on since January, haven't you? You've had
Yes.
People signed
Well,
up.
we've had a self-evaluation program going on where you can monitor your own physical activities and create a level of performance, and we acknowledge that with a certificate down at the event. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Invite you all to come down and do a little Pilates or something.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 8A5. Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. Good luck. Thanks. Item 6 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mayor, just a couple on page 13, under item 9G1, item B, 3512 Steel Avenue. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has removed. And item F, 1533 Southwest 41st. We ask that that be stricken. Again, the owner has removed. And then under item 9H1, item C, 517 Harvest Trail. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. And then on item 911, or I1, item C, 517 Harvest Trail. Again, we ask that that one be stricken because the owner is now secured.
Any other requests for uncontested continuances? All right, let's recess the council meeting, convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. There are 3 items. All right, comments or questions on the MFA? Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. Adjourn the OC MFA, convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. 5 items here. All right, comments or questions on the PPA?
I had a question on D.
Yeah.
How much total are we putting in? And I remember there being a phased approach of the softball facility. What is the total number of?
The total budget?
Yes. Do you know that?
20. There was a James, I don't want to guess. Dennis Bowers and Eric Winger can come up, and Tom Anderson have been working on that closer than I have. We had 2 phases that were completed last year, and then the second phase this year, and then we've got a third phase that will be funded with a future GEO bond issue.
Okay.
And the 2 phases that are completed, I think, are in the $6 million range, I think, and then the future phase for the adding more seating up there in the next few years was over 10 or 15.
Okay. This item here is a private sector, gift.
Yes.
Based on naming rights.
Yeah, no,
It's another part of the funding.
Eric, I'm guessing the numbers, and he just shook his head, and he's not sure either. Well,
Yeah.
How about if we get back to you on that?
Any other questions about PPA? We have a motion? All right, we do. Then cast your votes. It passed unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCPPA, convene as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust, just the claims and payroll today. All right, cast your votes. It passed unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. All right, are there any individual considerations?
Mayor, I had a couple of things. 7G, 7I, and 7K.
Okay. Go ahead and get started, ma'am.
Alrighty, great. I just wanted to recognize in item 7G the acceptance of a $1,000 grant with the American Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and this was to actually provide the dollars for one of our employees. It was a scholarship, essentially, for one of our employees to attend their animal welfare conference in Dallas, which is always a good idea for our folks to get additional continuing education.
All right.
Item 7I is also a resolution that reallocates some dollars from community development block grants and from the SNI initiative to create a small economic development loan fund for micro enterprises. It's a small lending program in the areas touched by our CDBG footprint. And I think it's just a wonderful opportunity that will allow just a small lending program and small businesses within our commercial district revitalization programs to apply.
Okay, and then item K?
And then item K, I'll be as quick as I can. This is a really awesome opportunity. I just wanted to kind of make sure that the development community was aware of. The City of Oklahoma City is declaring surplus 4 tracts of property along 10th Street between North Ellison and North Blackwelder. And you may remember that this was property that the city acquired when we did the work on 10th Street and expanded the width of it. And north side of the street, we're putting out an RFP for interested parties to look at 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, or all 4. It's very specific in how it can be developed. You can't pick block 1 and block 4.
Right.
They have to be contiguous blocks.
Are we looking at mixed use, or do you have any idea?
We
what
are.
you're thinking?
We're really looking at a broad range of things. Mixed use would be preferable, but it could be single-family housing all the way up to commercial.
Yeah. So we're looking for developers or
We're looking for
people with
developers to take
ideas.
a look at this. The value that we've appraised the property, and the value is actually extremely reasonable. It's a complicated site to develop because the utilities are on the other side of the street. And so I think in terms of, what we're hoping to be able to offer, it is in the value of the property. But our planning department's been working on this very hard, and it's a very exciting site and could really enhance what's going on in Class and 10 Penn. It's on the south end.
Absolutely.
Class and 10
Continuing the
Penn.
growth
So
of the city in the west, 10th Street's a good project.
really encourage folks to take a look at the RFP and see if they can come up with some creative projects. And Ian's been working on this really hard. Is there anything, Ian, that I missed? Great. Well, it's a wonderful opportunity, so I hope we'll get some great results.
Mayor, I've also asked David Todd to talk to us for a minute this morning about item Z, and it's an amendment to the implementation plan with the school trust. And as we're wrapping up, we're having some additional excess funds, if you will, that we're reprogramming. The program implementation plan was adopted, I think, in '02, and it's been modified just a couple of times. And to modify the plan, it has to go to the city council, to the school board, and to the school trust. And it's a 3-step process because we wanted to make sure that we had the plans and they were well thought through and implemented. So, David?
Thank you, Mr. Couch. As Mr. Couch said, this is program implementation plan amendment, and I've just got a quick little presentation here for you. We're getting close to the end of the Maps for Kids program, and so we're taking this excess money and doing some things here. So the last update on this implementation plan was January of 2015, and that was what they call the BYOD program, the Bring Your Own Device program, that the school district is putting together for the high schools right now, so that kids can bring iPads and work off their iPhones. So that was the last one we did. This update contains 2 changes, and it's Chavez Elementary and Moon Elementary. Chavez Elementary here on the left is a little over $4 million, and Moon is a little over $1.5 million. Chavez was they left it out of the bond program inadvertently for a gymnasium. It just got left out. So what this project will do is add some classrooms, and it'll add a gymnasium at Chavez. And then Moon was in the program originally, and then it was scheduled to be closed and was taken out of the program. And as you know, it's still open, and there's a lot of things to be done at Moon. So with the work that the school district's doing and what we can do, we think we can make a difference out there. So as far as status, we have 68 schools that are complete, 45 early start roofing and fire alarm projects. We have 5 schools that are under construction right now, and as far as projects still to be done that is on the original program, we have the administration building, and that is it. Here's the list of, pardon me, all the schools that we have completed. I'm obviously not going to read all those, but you can see that there's a substantial list. Other completed projects were bus fleet replacement, and you've seen this before, but you can see all the IT work. So this money that we have identified for these 2 projects came mostly out of IT savings, because we were able to bundle computers. Instead of buying 1 school worth of computers, we bought 10 schools worth of computers at the same time. And over the course of all these years, we've saved a lot of money. So the schools that are under construction right now is Taft Middle School, and that one is very close to being complete. We expect a final acceptance within 30 days or so. Emerson Alternative Addition is also pretty much in the same state. There's two projects going on at Emerson. There's the renovation and the clinic also, but the addition is 95, 99% complete right now. They're just doing some cleanup things. The renovation is, I don't know, about a third of the way through, so it's still going, but yes, Emerson has turned out really well. There's a fire suppression project still at Northeast Academy, and there's a paving project at Columbus at Jackson, and both of those are more than halfway complete. And then, as I said a while ago, the remaining project is the administration building. So this implementation plan asks for Chavez and Elementary as additional projects.
And if I can highlight a couple other things. One, there were additional things done to Moon. Moon was done, some other improvements have been done by the school district early on. And the other thing is that this is the Maps for Kids program. This is the 2001 program that was voted on by the voters with the bond issue at that time and the sales tax at that time. We are currently still administering some projects for the school district from their 07 bond issue. And so there are some gymnasiums going on, a lot of gymnasiums going on throughout the district. And so we are still working toward that. We're kind of like a contractor for the school district to get those projects built. And so that's all we're working on with Maps for Kids is what David's pointed out, but his office is still doing other projects for the school district.
Yeah. Pete?
We have an update on what the status is on the administration building? Are they going to use the one old Central Bank building, or?
I believe that they are. I think they're still trying to work through what they're trying to do. I think, I know that they've visited some other facilities and have, I think, embraced an open office concept. And so I don't think they can get all their people into that building, but I think between that and a couple of other things that they've got working, they'll be able to get out of the class facility in the next year or so. Not the class, the client facility.
Yeah. Where are we with regard to the overall budget? I understand we're in budget, but these are projects that are added on because, these two today are added on because of savings. Where does it look like we'll be when the projects that are currently scheduled, leaving the administration building off because that may take up any money? Is that the plan?
Well, yeah, there's money set aside for the administration building that was always there, and the projects that are ongoing are within budget. There might be a little bit left over as those complete, but we should be fine as far as what we're supposed to do there.
Okay.
This is actually programming some additional money that we had left over, right, and the school district identified this as their primary.
I guess my question is, they're in such a bind with regard to schools in South Oklahoma City, especially Southwest Oklahoma City. They're just hugely built in with regard to the number of schools they need. And I'm just wondering if there was a possibility that any money be left out of all these projects to help them, at least start another facility someplace. Probably more in Meg's ward than it is mine, but it's in the Heronville, Columbus. I know there's a plan, or there's been conversation about reopening Columbus, which is probably should have never been closed. But, we have a history. I went to a high school or a school that they closed one time. They shouldn't have. I understand that.
The good news, Pete, is we're at least getting some additional classrooms at Chavez, which were severely needed with this project.
Well, I know they're going to have a bond issue soon, and we ought to make sure that we get as much done as we can, because how the performance of their last bond issue and of Maps for Kids are going to have a great deal to do with how successful they are when they go out for bonds the next time, and we need to be on top of that because they sorely need more classroom space.
And I'm glad that you all are talking about classroom space. About a month ago, I had the opportunity to go to Chavez again and to see kids learning in the hallway, desks in the hallway, and to see kids learning in the stairway, where you had maybe 6 desks in the stairway, kids trying to learn. That was definitely sad to see. So I'm definitely glad we'll be able to figure something out for us, Chavez. And as it relates to Moon, thank you for your hard work, because I know originally Moon was a part of the Maps for Kids, and then they decided to close Moon. Then they decided to keep Moon open, but without the necessary resources. So I want to personally thank you for working with us on trying to get improvements done to Moon. During spring break, I had the opportunity to drop by Moon and to see some of the improvements that the school district put in place, and there's still yet work to be done, but I just wanted to personally thank you, because as you remember a couple of years ago, when I held my town hall meeting on Maps 3, Maps for Kids, Moon was an issue that was brought up time after time. So I just want to personally thank you. Matter of fact, that town hall meeting was actually David Todd's wedding anniversary. But he came on out anyway. So I just, again, want to thank you for your hard work as it relates to Chavez and Moon.
Okay. David, thank you.
Thanks.
Ready to vote the consent docket? All right, cast your votes. It passed unanimously. Moves us on to the concurrence docket. All right, any individual considerations here? Looks like 14 items on the concurrence docket. All right, cast your votes. It passed unanimously. And now we're on to item 9. These are items that require a separate vote. We begin with a series of zoning cases. The first two are in Ward 7. First one is at 2501 East Memorial Road. It's currently involved in a couple of planned unit developments, and it would become a new PUD if approved. John?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up? I see that the applicant is present. And first of all, I just want to thank the applicant, which is Oklahoma Christian University. Thank you all for everything that you do for our city. A lot of people believe that Oklahoma Christian University is in Edmond because you all have an Edmond address. But however, it is within the city limits of Oklahoma City. And so I just want to again thank you. Again, Oklahoma Christian University for everything that you do for our community. And since you all are already at the podium, I was going to actually go ahead and move for approval. But I just want, since you all are here, can you explain the future growth of Oklahoma Christian University?
Okay, sure, Mr. Pettis. I'm Bill Collins. I'm an attorney. I represent the university, and I have with me Stephen Eck, who's Vice President and General Counsel. The current zoning was in place, 20 years ago or so. The university has evolved quite a bit, mostly in conformance with the old zoning, some not quite. But this is an update. There is a critical need for housing for the university. The university, back up, Teal Ridge Manor, which is the high-rise independent living for senior citizens, is owned by the university. And it's being phased out as independent living and moving students into it. But we don't have the zoning for it. So the primary purpose for the application is to address the critical need for housing for students. The university has been a victim of its own success. It's got about 2,500 students now, undergrad and graduate students. And it's out of room to house the students who live on campus. So the critical issue is to address the housing. We've also done some other things by way of this zoning to make more space available for future growth by shortening the setbacks that are pretty extraordinary now and allowing a little extra height. But it's just an update. And university plans to continue to grow. 3,000 students is not an unreasonable number for the foreseeable future, and who knows after that. But at any rate, this old plan that's been in effect for some 20 years just needs some tweaking and some updating, and to get it more consistent with what's actually on the ground and plan for future growth.
All right, thank you. And with that said, I move for approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A1. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously.
I appreciate it. Gentlemen and Ms. Salyer, we have a current application for building permit, And one of the holdups is the zoning, so if we could we have the emergency, please?
I move the emergency.
All right, we have a motion on it.
Thank you very much.
Cast your votes, and it passes 6-1.
Did Pete vote?
Yes. But there were only 7 lights up there.
Yeah, I don't think his light was on.
Yeah, his light was on. Oh, it was
there are
Ed's
2.
that wasn't on. Okay, so it was 6-2. The emergency passes 6-2.
It needs 7 affirmative votes.
Okay. An emergency vote needs 7, so the emergency did not pass. All right, we're on to item 9A2. This is a zoning case in Ward 7 at 10400 Northeast 150th Street. It's currently AA agricultural, and it would become a new planned unit development. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has anyone signed up? No one signed up. I move for approval. The Planning Commission did approve, so I move for approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A2. There's no comments or questions on this item. Cast your votes, and it passes unanimously. Item 9A3 is a zoning case in Ward 5 at 12205 Southwestern Avenue. It's currently AA agricultural, and it would become a new simplified plan unit development. David?
Thank you, Your Honor. Francis, anyone sign
No,
up?
sir.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Would you please come forward? This was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission. There's no protest. And just for my personal clarification, you're proposing to add 5 new buildings with a total number of units to be added of 40. Is that correct?
Yes, Jason Spencer with Craft and Toll on behalf of the applicant. That is correct. That's what's spelled out in the SPUD. That'd be the maximum added. So it's just a continuation of the traditions at Westmore there.
Yeah, and I believe it's been very well accepted by the residents and the community in total. So I recommend approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A3. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 9B is a request for a drainage easement in Ward 8. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on item 9B1 today? How about a motion then on item 9B1? Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. And item 9B2 is to close a portion of 52nd Street. This is to help out the Omniplex.
All right,
John?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do see the director of the Omniplex present. The Planning Commission approved, and again, this plan actually allows the closing of the street and also allows for the correct plating. Did I say that word right? Yeah. It allows for the correct plot to be done, because they still under the old one, and so this will actually bring it up to date and also close out Northeast 52nd Street. And you all have requested emergency because the simple fact they are currently under construction, and they did not realize at the time that they was under the old, that was platted way back in the old plat was still in effect. So with that said, I am going to move for approval, and then I'm going to make another motion for the emergency.
All right, this is a motion on item 9B2 that would benefit the Science Museum of Oklahoma.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So this isn't closing the street in between the museum and the zoo, right? It's not.
It's closing the street in front of the museum.
But
Right.
like a street that's not
Right,
actually
and
there.
and basically what they are doing is that they're closing that street and making where people come in off of Remington Place instead of on 52nd Street, because what happens, people turn on 52nd and go straight down, and it causes a major traffic jam. So now they want to bring the traffic off of Remington where they can come straight into the Omniplex parking, and it splits up the zoo parking, and it splits up the Omniplex parking. So, because a lot of times people go through 52nd to try to get to the zoo, and so now it basically was set up where you come in, if you're coming in for the Omniplex, you're coming in you come into the Omniplex, you want to go to the zoo, then you'll be able to go to the zoo through the other entrance. And also they have changed the entrance to the building, because right now the building entrance is further on, kind of closer to Martin Luther King. Now they've moved the entrance way closer to where you see the drive-in. So it just, and matter of fact, I'm going to allow the director, the police, come up and further explain.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. I'm Don Otto, Director of the Science Museum. I live at 14517 Oakmont Road, Edmond, Oklahoma, 73013. We indeed are requesting to close 52nd Street for two reasons. One, the convenience of visitors, but two, the safety issue, because of what Mr. Pettis says, the traffic that's there, and it isn't always safe traffic. We have lots of families with strollers and little kids trying to get across that street. What we are in fact doing is requesting to turn 52nd Street into a pedestrian way from MLK to the education building at the zoo. So the zoo and the museum, pedestrian-wise, will actually be connected completely on what is now 52nd Street. So the street has already been pretty much abandoned, I guess, in front of the zoo, and we're requesting to continue that on over to Martin Luther King Avenue.
And Don, this is a project that you've been working on for at least 10 years, maybe more than that, in terms of redoing the entry of the building, a new facade, opening up the visibility of the museum.
Yeah, we're about 75% of the way through a $23 million improvement to the Science Museum, all private funding. It'll include a 20,000 square foot exhibit for families with younger children that I think will extend the visit to the museum by 4 to 6 additional hours, which is a good thing. Plus moving the entrance to the central location in the building and redoing all of the parking, landscaping, adding trees, all of those, and improving the facade of the building. As you know, our building isn't the most handsome in the world, so we're making it look more interesting on the outside to reflect what we think is important going on the inside.
Congratulations on getting that all accomplished. It's a huge step.
So to clarify, there's not going to be that 52nd entrance to the parking lot?
There will not be the 52nd entrance. There will become a pedestrian way. The bus pickup and drop off for school children will come from 50th along the west side of our building, and there actually will be parking on the west side of the building for buses during normal times. Certainly in May that won't work because we'll get 60 to 70 school buses at a time show up, right, because everybody waits until May. But during most times we'll have plenty of bus parking on the west side of the building. During peak times they will park at the south end of Remington Park parking lots. But we are endeavoring to separate the bus parking and bus ingress, egress from the automobile traffic because they don't mix very well. Well, they mix too well sometimes.
And so there will be one entrance to the museum off of Remington Place and one entrance to the zoo off of Remington Place, or is there just going to be one total?
There's one for each of the museum and the zoo from Remington Place. We also have a secondary entrance into the museum's parking space from MLK. It's moved farther north, north from where it is now at 52nd Street. But there will be another entrance into the parking from Martin Luther King. But the primary entrance that we will be, and we'll have the ability to close that off during slower times, but the primary entrance will be off Remington Place.
Okay. All right. John, you have a motion. Is there a second? Second. All right. Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. John, you'll make the motion on the emergency.
Emergency.
Is there a second?
Wait. Before we vote, I want to talk about my concern about the emergency, and I'm going to vote for this one, I think. My concern is the emergency clause is put in to give the public an opportunity to argue against it. if they feel aggrieved by it. It has a purpose. Emergency clause cuts off that appeal time if anybody has one. In the future, any of you that want my vote on the emergency, you need to tell me why why this is different than any other case. I'm not going to vote for any more of them that have a protest. If there's a single protester, I'm not going to vote for the emergency. I just want to, this is good opportunities I have to talk to all of you and tell you what I'm thinking. If there is a reason for this emergency or any emergency other than I'm in a hurry, that's not good enough to convince me to vote for the emergency. But if there's a reason, I just like to hear it. I don't want to be voting against all the emergency just because somebody moves seconds and we vote on it and we don't know why. If there's a valid reason for it, I'm in on that. But I'm not in on it being just a way to shorten the process and cut the public's access to an appeal off. So if before we vote, if somebody can give me a reason for an emergency, you might get one today. If not, I'm not going to vote for it.
Dennis Box on behalf of the applicant. I've got an excellent reason in this case. This case will have to go to the district court. We'll file a petition. By voting for the emergency, you allow us to file the petition immediately. We will give notice to the public. Anybody that might have had their rights taken away will have those rights over in the district court. It will just speed up the process, but they will have those same rights. So this
case has to go to district court before it could be finalized anyway, so there's going to be another notice.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I do also want to thank the director who did reach out and met with the neighborhood association about this. They have had a very long positive relationship with the neighborhood, and the neighborhood does not have any concerns. And so that's one of the reasons why I am asking for the emergency, in addition to what Mr. Box stated.
That's good. All I ask before we vote on emergencies is to have somebody to have a reason other than I'm in a hurry. That's your problem, not mine. And that's your problem, not the public's. But if you have a good reason, like the one you've given, and the fact there's going to be notice, that's fine. I just thought this was a good opportunity to clarify it, because there may have been a reason the last time, but the thing was done before I had a chance to do anything. I don't want to be against the progress. What I do, I've said it again. I know I have said it again.
Well, I want to
I saw the mayor smiling at me, and I knew he thought I was going to say it again.
I want to echo, I find Councilman White's arguments persuasive. It took me about 4 years to, but I guess I'll vote for this one because of the explanation given, but I'm unlikely to vote for any emergency absent a threat to public health or public security, which is what I think the clause was designed for. So I have nothing against, as I vote against these from here on out, I have nothing against a potential applicant, but it'll just be, it's very unlikely that I'll vote for an emergency from here forward.
Okay. All right, we're voting on the emergency. It's item 9B2. Cast your votes, and it passes unanimously. We're on to item 9C, and this item is hip for final hearing. This is a fee adjustment on our parks. We held a public hearing last week. Did anyone show up today hoping to speak on item 9C? All right, how about a motion? Is there a second? All right, cast your votes on 9C, and it passes unanimously. And item 9D is a companion item to 9C. This just kind of moves it forward. Is there a motion on 9D? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9E is a bond sale that took place this morning, hopefully about 45 minutes ago. Is there any word yet?
I got a text on it, and there is word, but we need a few more minutes, so we can put that later on the agenda. We've got 7 bids, and they came in very good for us, but we're not quite ready yet.
All right, we'll come back to item 9E then. Move on to item 9F, and this is, is this connected to the 9E?
It is indeed.
Okay, so we'll come back to 9F as well. Item 9G is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9G? All right, how about a motion? Is there a second? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9H is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9H? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes on 9H, and it passes unanimously. Item 9I is a public hearing regarding abandoned buildings. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on any item listed under 9I? All right, how about a motion? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9J is a presentation from Eric Winger. Eric's going to come in and talk to us about some street
New
lighting
streetlight
policies.
policy, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I apologize for the delay. There are a few changes today that I'd like to present with the city's street lighting policy update. I think if you've had a chance to read the memo, you'll find that the original policy was actually put in place back in 1980. So there's obviously been a significant number of changes just in the lighting fixture types that we use across the city. Get my couple of notes here. There are one more minute. I'm almost there. So one of the biggest issues that the old policy did not address, and some of the things that have come to the council most recently, is in regard to mid-block lighting. And so if you look at the old policy, what it provided for is that in intersections that exceeded 600 feet, intersection to intersection, specifically in residential neighborhoods, it provided for one mid-block light to be installed. One of the biggest issues is that if intersections exceeded 600 feet, it didn't provide for a second or a third light. And so one of the biggest revisions that we're making in this policy is that the 600-foot spacing is still in place and it still provides for mid-block lighting, but you're going to see that we actually can provide for additional lighting under the policy with 300-foot minimum and 220-foot maximum spacings. And so, for example, if only one light could have been provided before, if you look at multiple intersections that now go from 600 to 659 feet, we can install one mid-block light. At 660 to 879 feet, we can now install 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on as the intersection lengths increase. We actually have a number of intersections in Oklahoma City that exceed 1,000 feet, and so they obviously merit one or more additional mid-block lights. This new policy takes care of that. The other things that are in the policy is that it does reduce and actually eliminate the actual fixtures. One of the biggest things that's coming to our attention, OG&E is now studying LED lighting, but there are different types of LED lights, and so instead of having specifics on types of lights that will be installed, we're leaving that very open for new technologies, and then we actually hope to see some LED lighting opportunities in Oklahoma City here in the very near future. The last item that I'll mention that's included is we have reduced the financial limitation that was in the old policy. The old policy had a 5% annual cap on increase for lighting. There are a couple of issues that have come. The first is that we actually have different rate increases from the electric utilities that can sometimes exceed that 5% limitation without adding new infrastructure. The other is that we actually deal with our utility companies and we use credits and other methods of payment now that don't conform to the old policy. But what I'll update is that we're going to be financially responsible and fiscally responsible for future updates. And as we look at new lighting installations in Oklahoma City, we're working very, very closely with other city departments, including budget and finance, ensuring that those funds are in place for any new lighting that's approved by the city council. So with those changes, those are really the three largest items that we've changed, the mid-block lighting being one of the most significant, reducing and eliminating the fixture types so that we can make way for new technologies, and then also that final one that we've got that capacity that if funding is available that we can proceed with new projects. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Eric, has OG&E provided us with a new inventory of available lighting, or is that by eliminating it? I mean, you really are allowing for future technology, but have we updated, even on an interim basis, what we can use?
So we have not. OG&E actually provides us different lighting fixtures through their tariff, and so it's not really a part of the city's street lighting policy that those lights are provided. It may have been back in 1980, but now they're listing and giving us opportunities for new lights. For street lighting, there really only are two light types that OG&E is able to provide. But with the LED, they're talking about providing up to 5 different light types with the new LED technology. We think that once those are received by the city and reviewed and approved, that's going to be the wave of the future, but we're going to keep that very open. For example, there is an LED pilot project on Southwest 15th Street, just west of Interstate 44. It has 5 different or 6 different LED types that have been studied for the past couple of years, but even those LED technologies of 2 or 3 years ago are updated with newer technologies today. They're able to control the colors of lights better. They're able to even reduce some of the maintenance and some of the other issues that were in the early LED technologies. So we just want to keep that open so that we can take advantage of whatever the latest technology is that OG&E or OEC or Canadian. We also have 3 companies, but the other companies can provide as well.
Right, that was going to be my follow-on is can we acquire lighting from other companies?
This policy would apply to all street lighting in Oklahoma City, so we would use the same policy with OEC and Canadian Valley Electric.
And I'm extremely grateful for the attention to the mid-block lighting. You know, that's been a neighborhood issue for a long time, and there'll be folks that are, I think, knocking at our doors anxious to improve some neighborhood lighting.
So with the council's approval today, we would be able to receive new mid-block lighting requests, actually approve those, and start those installations with OG&E in the future.
All right. Eric, thank you. How about a motion then on this resolution?
Mayor? I'd like to ask Eric a question. Is there a lighting policy in the rural areas? The reason I ask is because you arrive in the rural area and you'll find a light, and then you'll go 2 or 3 miles and you won't find any lights. You'll find intersections that are highly traveled with lights and without lights. And I don't know whether that's that way in other people that have a lot of, councilmen have a lot of rural areas, but that's the way it is in mine. It appears there's no real pattern or no, and I just wonder if there is one, and if there isn't one, shouldn't we look at one? People in rural areas are really on the far edges of the argument about lighting. There are those that think they need the light. You see pole lights at every house practically. But then you also have the people that think that lighting is pollution and it destroys the value of living in a rural area. So it's a real dichotomy. But at the intersections, it seems to me that we ought to have some kind of policy, because there are some fairly well-traveled intersections even in the rural area.
So this policy does not address rural lighting specifically. It does have the residential as a part of the policy, but it doesn't differentiate, say, between suburban residential and rural residential. So I would say that rural residential would be a candidate for this policy, but not specifically street lighting. Right. We can definitely look at that. I think that some of the issues that we may run into is sometimes the availability of electricity on maybe some of our rural intersections, but absolutely, we could look at that. Right. I'm also anticipating there may be some other things that will come up, say, in the next year. We may not want to wait 30 years for the next lighting policy update. You know, we may want to do it on a more regular basis.
Well, I'd just like to see something, some kind of report or something that looks at it. I'm not advocating it necessarily because of what I said. There's people on both sides of that argument. People want them and people hate them. In the rural areas, that may be true in residential areas too, but probably not quite as dramatically as it is in the rural areas.
OG&E offers a really unique opportunity for private owners, and so this doesn't, the policy does not address private security lighting, but as you mentioned, there are a lot of pole lights that are located at residences at the request of the property owner. Right. OG&E has a whole separate program to install lights individually. That's actually a very cost-effective solution for security lighting, and they can purchase a number of lights. OG&E makes the installation. It's incorporated into their monthly bill. We could probably update a little bit more on what that is if there's an interest as well.
That is a good, I have 3 old lights myself, so I know, but I'm really focused on the intersection, rural, not mid-mile.
We'll be happy to look at that. Yeah, let me look at that.
It seems some of them are fairly unsafe because they're so dark.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second on 9J. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9K, understand we do not need executive session.
Do not.
Okay. Yeah, the motion is to approve the resolution. Okay, cast your votes on 9K. The resolution passes. Item 9L, I'll ask the council if they'd like to have executive session on this item. All we need to do is pass the resolution if you'd like. All right, see, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And that puts us on to 9M, and I understand we do need executive session on 9M?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is there a motion to move item 9M into executive session? All right, cast your votes. Item 9M is into executive session. Item 9N, I understand we do not need executive session, so a motion to strike would be in order. Cast your votes on 9M. That item is struck from the agenda. Item 9O is claims recommended for denial. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9O? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Looks like we have the results of our bond sale. Is that right? Craig, come on up.
Really good timing, Craig.
Yeah, we skipped item 9E and F on the agenda earlier. Craig, give us an update on the sale that took place this morning.
Well, we did have our bond sale this morning for $85,595,000. We received 7 proposals. The low bidder was Robert W. Baird and Company at 2.665966. That's our second lowest bid. The lowest bid 2 years ago was like 2.662, and so it's a very good bid for us. Very pleased. The next lowest bidder was at 271, so very tight. The highest bidder was at 287, so it's a very good bid for us, and we're really excited about it. Moody's and Standard & Poor's had looked at this again. We did this just a few weeks ago when we talked about our the refunding, had the refunding item before you. The Moody's and Standard & Poor's had looked at us and reconfirmed our AAA bond rating. When they come with a new bond issue, they do a reassessment and again have confirmed the AAA bond rating. I do want to recognize they aren't with us right now because they're down still finishing up some work, but our financial advisors from PFM, Dennis Whaley and Jennifer Arndt, are with us. And then our bond counsel, John Michael Williams and Gary Bush. I appreciate their work. And then Kenny Soodle is our assistant finance director and debt manager. And then Joanna McSpadden is also, she's a budget specialist, but also works on our debt program. So I appreciate all their work on this. It's very good for the city, and it's a great bond sale.
All right. Greg, thank you. We need a motion on item 9E and F. How about a motion on item 9E first?
Move the item.
Second.
All right. Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. And then on item 9F is the companion item.
Move the item.
All right. Cast your votes. It passed unanimously. Thanks, Greg.
Your Honor, I would like to say, in light of the pending, or at least the speculation of increased interest rates, again, it's a very, very impressive rate that we were able to achieve on this bond issue. So, thank you.
I believe, Francis, we need to make sure that we have the emergency on that.
Good luck with that.
So, this one we need it.
Why
for
do
the
you need
purpose
the
of bond
emergency,
sale,
Craig?
To be able to, yes.
Why do you need the emergency?
The emergency is so that they can get the bonds. So they've actually got deals to sell the bonds so they complete the deals.
Okay. All right. Cast your votes on the emergency. Passed unanimously. All right. Items from council. James, you have anything? All right. Ed?
I wanted to ask some questions. I see we have some personnel from IMSA, and I just wanted to follow up. I'm sorry for the disjointed nature of asking these questions today, because I know there was an IMSA presentation, or a fire in IMSA. My understanding was that was going to be at the end of February, and then for whatever reason it got rescheduled when, unfortunately, I couldn't be here. But Jim Couch asked a very important question about level 0. And I watched the proceedings, and I'm left with some questions. So I think someone from fire is going to Chief Bryant's not in town, but I think Chief Clay maybe.
I think Chief Clay was supposed to be here. Let me see if we can round him up.
So just
there he is.
Thanks. So I just have some questions, but just as background, I mean, if we'll go back to November of 2013 is when we switched from one provider, Paramedics Plus, to AMR, and AMR underbid Paramedics Plus by some $50 million over 5 years, and there was concern at the time about really a couple of things, that maybe the environment in the private sector is getting so intense. Paramedics Plus underbid AMR in Alameda County in California by a similar amount, and maybe this was, a similar kind of payback, or that there was and there were concerns about, how could you underbid Paramedics Plus, who's been doing it for all these years, by $50 million, without cutting back personnel, without decreasing the amount of services to the city, and that might be reflected in things like level 0, which is not having ambulances available at any particular time, or response times. And so this is really the first time we've talked about it since that switch. And we went about a year, we were hitting the numbers, and then for the first time that I think, first time in modern history, they didn't hit their numbers in terms of response time. And so there was a large fine levied against AMR. That's a significant event, and that was for December and January, I believe. Then Lacey Lowry from Channel 9 was listening to our department's broadcast and overheard that we were at level 0. She inquired, what is this level 0 business, and did a story about level 0, in which the title of the story was Oklahoma City Flu Cases Causing Ambulance Shortages. And Jim Wenham, the IMSA Director of Clinical Services, said, even though it might sound scary, it changes very, very quick, because if we're at a hospital, they may just be dropping a patient off, but they're still available to run calls. And Lacey Lowry ends the story saying the general public would never know about the level 0 status because IMSA is still making it to every call in the required response time. Just shortly after that, IMSA, in a meeting with our chiefs, Blocker, who's our EMS chief, and Staniland, requested us to stop using level 0 over when we're broadcasting that, because the media had picked up on that. And for whatever reason, they made a request of us to stop saying level 0, which my understanding is we said no. I mean, we might say there are no ambulances available, but we're not going to stop telling the fire department that we're at level 0. The reason being that our department responds to all level 1 priority life-threatening calls, but not the other ones, unless we're at level 0, which means that there's no ambulances available at a particular time, and therefore we have to then change our policy and respond to all calls, priority 2 on down. And so last week, when I listened to IMSA CEO Williamson, he said that this is really, he didn't say anything about the flu, which left me confused, because that's what the story said. It was about the flu, the spike in flu cases. Last week, there was no mention of the flu. Oh, I'm so sorry. And so what he said is that there was a challenge in December or January, and that this is a national issue related to the number of paramedics, that the issue is solved. We're excited about the future. We've increased the number of paramedics. We had some other local providers who took some of our paramedics, but this is a national problem with the curriculum. They can go a little longer and be a nurse. So now AMR is giving signing bonuses and shift differentials, and that will help solve the situation. So with that, let me just ask you, some questions and clarification. How many, I think one question I have is, how many incidents of level 0 have we had since November of 13 when we changed providers?
We've had 132. This is from our records, tracking it as a fire department. We started tracking these things after November 1st of 2013. We've had 132 incidents of level 0.
Okay. So and what is...
That's IMSA's term, obviously. It's not our term, so.
So that's a time that IMSA tells us that we're at level 0. So that you've been notified by IMSA that we're at level 0.
We requested that through some meetings with IMSA personnel, that we wanted to start knowing when they were at level 0. So as you stated, we could know why we're responding on lower level calls. And that's the situation that came up, is that they were supposed to notify me originally, being the Deputy Chief of Operations, or Chief Stanland, who is directly over dispatch. At first, we had issues a little bit with getting the notifications, and so we started I requested the personnel in the field that if they find out they're at level 0 or whatever, that they would contact our dispatch and confirm that, so that we could put that out to the rest of the stations or the crews responding that IMSA's at level 0, meaning that, from what we understand of that they have no ambulances to respond at the time.
So it's 100, what's the number?
132 incidents since November of 2013.
So we're at a year and a half, so that's roughly about every 4 days we're at level 0. And the average duration that we're at level 0 is how long?
On average, it's 2.5 hours. Sometimes it'll be a little longer than that. Sometimes it'll be, shorter. As you'd say, there's times that it's maybe 20 minutes or something, and that would probably go in hand with, they have someone that's at a facility dropping a patient off and can get right back, but they're notifying us.
So if you've got some incidents that are 20 minutes and your average is 2.5 hours, it stands to reason that you've got some times that you've 4 and 5 hours.
We have documented, Chief Stanland's documented this from the reports from our field personnel. He does have a spreadsheet that has those incidents on there.
So Williamson last week was very clear that some of us may have heard this number 2.5 hours, but that's just simply not true. So there's a discrepancy in what we're hearing last week and this week.
As far as our factual information that we've collected, that would be the average.
So they tell you when they're going on level 0, and then they tell you when you're off level 0, and the average of that number is 2.5 hours.
And some of the time, there may be some incidents where they have forgot to notify us. We have a few of those. I mean,
so they
haven't notified us that they went off a level 0, which could be understandable.
That was my next question, is that you've got some times where they're at level 0, but you weren't notified, so the number could actually be larger. I think you have at least six times that you know of. Our dispatchers are sitting next to their dispatchers. We know they're at level 0, but we never got the official.
I don't know what the exact number on that would be, but there are times that they were either very busy and couldn't notify us. Most of the times that these occur from looking at the report, because we asked them to give us a reason why they're at level 0. And most of them are obviously larger call volume. They're busier than they would normally expect on that particular day or whatever.
But did you want to ask a question?
Well, I was just going to say that I picked up on that, saying that there was a lack of communication on this issue between the fire department and EMSA. And so after the last week's meeting, I asked Chief Barry if he would be an interface between the fire department and EMSA to try to work that issue out.
Okay.
So I did hear that, and I asked Chief Barry to be involved in that issue last week.
Perfect. Thank you.
I will say over the last couple of years, within the last 2 years, that we've had a lot better relationship with the EMS providers and stuff, and we have meetings on a pretty regular basis to discuss issues, and these things come up. You know, hey, you're at level 0. Let us know. Is there something? Because we all want to work together to provide the best service we can.
Do you have a sense for how many calls we've made on lower priority calls because they're at level 0 that ordinarily we wouldn't make?
I have that number. It's over that period of time. We made about 59,000 EMS calls for that period through our Leading for Results database, and during that time we made 688 calls to lower priority calls that weren't level 1 calls that we would normally go on.
Are we compensated in any way for making those? I mean, I know that in Tulsa, I think maybe they were paid $50 every time they were there first, fire, or are we compensated in any way? And when AMR is fined, where does that money go? Does it go back to the taxpayers, to the taxing jurisdictions, or does it go to EMSA?
I don't know exactly where that money goes, because there's only been one time that I know they've been fined and we aren't compensated.
I can answer that, and the answer goes back to the EMSA, into the EMSA organization, which we are a beneficiary of. So it doesn't go back for any payback to the fire department or so, but it does go back into the EMSA, and so if there's inflow of cash, we would be a beneficiary of that.
But it's the Oklahoma City taxpayers that are making up the shortfall. I mean, it's our gasoline, it's our wear and tear on our engines, we're going out on calls that we wouldn't ordinarily go because of a surge or whatever. They have no ambulances available, some 600-700 times.
Could I ask a question,
Yeah.
Ed, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Going back to Paramedics Plus, I mean, did we have level 0 incidents at that time?
I'm certain we did, but I don't have those numbers, so I don't have the facts on that. But I think this has happened in the past.
And I'm just trying to get some history, as if this is a brand-new situation, or if we've, over years.
I don't want to speak for IMSA, but it's a complex issue, and we changed the criteria when we changed the contract. And I think that's a factor that's in there too. I think there's a factor of the startup issue that came forward, as Steve indicated last week. I think there are problems within the industry that they're having problems getting paramedics because the training has become higher levels of training, and a lot of people that go through that training can do a little bit more training and become a nurse. So I think there's some issues that along those lines. I think there's a lot of factors that come in, but it's still something that needs to be addressed. That doesn't mean that it's zero level is acceptable, and we need to work toward minimizing those occurrences.
But I know that level 0 did occur. I think Meg's exactly right. I mean, we need a historical reference. I mean, the impression that I got watching it last week was this was an issue in December and January. But it's clearly, you're having level 0 throughout the 18 months. Just in the time that I've been meeting with Chief Bryant trying to track this, it does appear like it's accelerating in the last 3 months. I met with him, again, we thought that Williamson was coming in February. I met with Chief Bryant in getting prepared for that, and we were at 99. Now we're at
132.
So, I mean, it would appear that it's accelerating, and I think that's the concern. So we need some historical reference. What happened under Paramedics Plus, and again, they had 2 less minutes than we do now. But is this accelerating? Is this... the bottom line is that Williamson told us that the problem's solved. We're excited about the future. We've hired new people. This isn't going to be a problem. So we have a budget presentation from Fire in May. Would there be any reason we couldn't have Mr. Williamson come back in 2-3 months and just check in with us and let us know that everything is still okay and we're hitting our numbers?
We can certainly get an update on it, absolutely.
Okay. But tell me about the mutual aid situation. My understanding when Williamson was going to come in February and said we were going to have fire chiefs from other municipalities here, because there's some concern about the mutual aid being used to hit some of these numbers. We're seeing Midwest City ambulances in far southwest Oklahoma City. In Mustang, I think the fire chief said we're seeing Tuttle ambulances as much as IMSA. Can you tell me anything about has there been a spike in mutual aid?
Just to go back for historical benefit, we didn't, the reason that we started tracking a lot of these things were because we came over under a new system, as Mr. Couch said, and we wanted to see how it affected the overall system. We weren't aware of that there may be a mutual aid issue, so we haven't been tracking that. I can't speak to facts on how many times that IMSA has another ambulance service come in for mutual aid, but I do know that from talking to our crews that it's happened more often than it ever did in the past. I can't quantify that because I don't have the facts on it. We haven't been tracking it.
But you have how many paramedics in the fire department?
We have 37 engine companies at 36 different stations. Out of all those engine companies, 31 of them are paramedic or ALS engines. We try to keep 2 paramedics at each one of those ALS engine companies. We have approximately 215 paramedics in our department. Now, all of those, some of those work in the training division that provide EMS training and other work sections that deal with EMS. But we have around 215. They come up and go down as we hire rookie classes. We try to hire paramedics. We're just like any other, they say, it is difficult to find paramedics, and especially cross-trained or people that want to cross-train as paramedics and firefighters.
But are you having problems with turnover? Or are you having problems retaining paramedics?
We do not have an issue with turnover in the fire department. As you know, it's a career. Most of our folks, that's what makes our departments one of the best departments in the nation. The best, in my opinion, is because of our people. It's not something that you get into and leave. Almost everyone in our department works at least 20, 25, 30 years, so we don't have an issue with turnover. Occasionally, we'll have paramedics that would request to go to a less busy station because, they're experiencing a lot of calls, but generally not even that. So if we have someone that is getting to the point that they need a little bit of a break from the paramedic calls, we'll move them to a slower paramedic station. But
So when we're hearing that it's a nationwide problem, retaining paramedics, that we have all these turnover issues, and that's leading to some level 0 issues, it's not a public sector, it's not an Oklahoma City Fire Department issue, it's a AMR private sector issue.
I would say it's a paramedic service issue. It's not a fire department paramedic service issue. In other words, the paramedic firefighters are not going to leave their job over that, whereas a paramedic may, in turn, get a little more education and move on into a higher level of medical field.
Okay, well, I really appreciate the clarification, and I just hope that we can revisit this in 2 to 3 months. We're not just talking about taxpayer dollars, we're talking about public health, response times, and if everything is solved and not a problem, as Williamson told us last week, then I'm sure in 2 to 3 months, and 6 months, and 12 months from now, they'll be hitting all the numbers. But I would like to revisit it. I personally would like to be present when Mr. Williamson comes each and every time. I'm not gone that often, and it's well known in advance when I am gone, so I'd like to be present. Thank you.
Pete, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I do. I'm more concerned about the service, the degradation. If there is a degradation of service, what is it, as opposed to the number? I would say I'm not a numbers guy, and then somebody'd say, well, what are you? And I wouldn't have any answer for that. So, but the number stuff doesn't, I'm not as moved by it as I am, what is that, how do those numbers translate into the quality of service, either by fire, by IMSA, by whatever? I mean, what our responsibility is to respond to our citizens' need for emergency health care. If going to zero has a perceivable, either numerically or emotionally, impact on the quality of health care, then I'm interested. Just how many times that this happens or how many times that happens is not all that significant to me. So when you come back, I'd like to have, if this, I mean, there's enough comment here about it that I'd like to know, is there an impact on health care? Is this computation of how many times we go to zero, has it made a difference in health care? I mean, health care costs money like everything else. And obviously, the fire department doesn't have turnover in paramedics. I mean, in my view, the true definition of mental illness would be somebody that leaves the fire department before they've been there long enough to retire. I mean, that goes without saying. I mean, so I'm more interested in how it affects people. If I had a heart attack today, I want to know how would it affect me, or if we want to talk about numbers, I want to get them down to bodies. I want to get them down to people. I want to get them down to Larry and me and everybody else around this horseshoe and all the 70,000 people I represent. Obviously, by throwing money at it, there is a way to do it. There is a way to make response times better. Everybody can have their own ambulance and their own driver. That'd be real quick response time. But we're not going to do that because healthcare costs money just like every other service we deliver. And I want it translated back to the impact on the healthcare outcomes.
So what outcome measure should we use?
I have no idea, but I mean, we talk about response times being related to outcomes.
I think here's the bottom line. You're never going to know. We have cardiac outcomes, right? How many people die from a heart attack, and that's measurable. But the person who's lying there with a broken hip or a broken femur, who has to sit there for an extra 2-3 minutes, you're never going to be able to measure that. Most of this is imperceptible to the public. They come home, somebody's laying on the floor, their beloved one, they call the ambulance. fire's getting there 60% of the time first, so it's usually fire that gets there. If they get there at 6 minutes versus 4 minutes, or 9 minutes versus 6 minutes, they can't tell the difference. But we know that the brain without oxygen, every single minute that's going by is doing more damage. There's more neurologic damage with a stroke. I mean, but you are never going to be able to get specific outcome measures that nail it down. And that's why the best that we have is how fast. That's why fire, what Chief Bryant talked about last time, is how many times fire's getting there at the 7-minute mark. And we're not hitting our mark. We want to be there 70% of the time. We're only getting there 58% of the time. And so that's the best measurable, objective data that we have, because the other stuff is imperceptible and it's not being measured. And 3 months from now, we won't have access to that data. And so that to me is the concern. If fire, with this level 0, and with these fires, on-time response, on-scene time has now increased 2 minutes, right?
Correct.
So fire's having to sit with a patient for an additional 2 minutes before they can hand it over to IMSA, and then they can go on to the next one. Do you know today what the response time is of the fire department, who we're relying on to get to priority 1 calls 60% of the time first, what the response time is during these level 0 incidents?
I know overall it's probably increased our response time in some of these situations 2 minutes, but
we can't have that. We can't have the fire department who's getting there first, getting there 2 minutes later if it's a heart attack or there's lack of oxygen to the body. You can't. 2 minutes is too much. And you may not see it in the numbers, and it may be very difficult, but we just know that 2 minutes for the first responder is unacceptable. And that's what I'm asking that we look at if they come back, or 2 to 3 months. If there's another outcome measure that is quantifiable, I'm all about looking at that. I don't know of one.
Okay. All right. Larry, do you have anything today?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. Just for the briefing of the council, to bring you up to date on some things. I happen to be the chairman of the IMSA board, and I serve at the request of the mayor and the city, because we are to have an advocate on the board to ensure the quality of service, since we have a very vested interest in the IMSA level of service. That being said, I find it kind of interesting that through all this dialogue, no one has approached me from either the city or the fire department about concerns over the level of service. Your IMSA board meets once a month, the last Wednesday of every month. We meet tomorrow, as a matter of fact. That is a public meeting that anybody can attend. One of the things that we do every meeting is review the operating results of what is going on in the field. I happen to be privileged, having read the agenda, to know that we are in compliance. IMSA is in compliance, or AMR is in compliance. I'll get it down right. AMR is in compliance on response rates during the month of February. The response rates call for us to be there within the prescribed time 90% of the time. The figure is 91% of the time for the month of February. So the getting to the scene. Now, where did the response times come from? The response times did not come from throwing a dart at a dartboard. They came as a result of a study that the Medical Control Board, which is the authority that tells IMSA what the protocols and responses have to be in order to give the citizen the desired level of service. The Medical Control Board are the ones, based on a study by the University of Oklahoma, not influenced by IMSA at all, came up with this are the response times that are needed to provide the level of service that the citizen deserves out there in an emergency situation. The system was put together that fire was to be the first responder to every call, and they were to administer whatever treatment that they could administer during that first call. EMSA was a part of the system to come along and transport, to continue the care and to transport that individual to a local hospital. The local hospitals are a part of that system to be able to expeditiously take the patient when he or she is brought to the emergency room and to continue the treatment. The final results are that the EMSA system that is in place right now is the envy of fire and emergency and hospital service nationwide. Our response rates to cardiac arrest are the second best in the United States. Now, with that being said, I think there is a need to bring, and Jim, a meeting together of the different parties and discuss some of these issues with the facts. We have EMSA people here. I'm not sure this is the right place to do that, but if you have a concern, a citizen out there, about the level of service in Oklahoma City that EMSA is providing, I wish you'd dial 761-6555. That's my cell phone number. That's what I'm charged to do, to be the conduit there, because I don't think there's this problem, but if there is, the EMSA people are here. They're committed to solving it. The AMR people are considering are wanting to solve it also. And I think it's not as bad as some of the figures that you're talking about. Were we ever at level 0? Yes. Is that a problem today? Is level 0 a problem today?
It's getting much better, sir. You're absolutely right.
There we are right there. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thanks. Pete, anything from items from council? All right, David?
Well, just to keep this topic on for a little bit longer, one of the nice things about springtime is the weather, but it soon turns into more violent type weather as we go, especially into April and May. But just wanted to state, having been through emergency training last year with Councilman Ryan, I know that our fire, police, and all of our emergency responders do a great job. The school systems, both the School District of Moore and Oklahoma City, continue to work with our fire departments in preparing for emergencies and disasters. And I don't want to be too over optimistic, but it's really a good feeling to see how well prepared our city is for any possible disasters. And we just have to be aware that as we move into the month of April and especially May, storm season does really heighten, and those opportunities for tornadoes, especially, we may have to change Ward 5 to something like Tornado Alley just to take advantage of that. And hopefully we won't have any like we did last year, but history tends to show us that we do often have problems. And like Chief Clay heads up the urban search and can you, what? Urban search and rescue. Yes, urban search and rescue. They do a tremendous job. They're continuing to train year-round. So anyway, just wanted to mention that to our citizens that unfortunately it's a problem we have to deal with, but the city is very well prepared. Thank you.
Right. Meg?
Okay, so I'm going to change the subject. I want to congratulate all the partners that participated in Open Streets. On Sunday, we had somewhere between 25 and 30,000 people on Northwest 23rd Street between Robinson and Western. It was a great event. People were on bikes and skates, and there were dogs, and I finally found out what pickleball is. They were playing pickleball on the street, and chess games, and it was a wonderful event. And it dovetailed with the second thing I'd like to mention, which is to thank OU and the Institute for Quality Communities. Fantastic day yesterday down in Norman, talking about placemaking. I felt like it really built on what we did last year and didn't just talk about place, but actually, talked about health and economic drivers and investor focuses and parking issues. And it really kind of stretched the concepts that we talked about. And the luncheon speaker was the former parks director from Bogota, Colombia. Wonderful speaker, and they started years ago this open streets idea. Our project on Sunday was 0.8 of a mile, and in Bogota, every Sunday and every holiday, they have 80 miles of streets closed and only available for walking, biking, skating, It's an amazing project, and he's going to be here actually tomorrow. He's here all week, and he's going to be here speaking to some of our staff on Wednesday to vision what this might look like 5 years out and 10 years out. But you know, he did a history of ancient cities and how they all developed. Their street patterns developed from walking paths, obviously, because that's what we do. We're called pedestrians. And he, at the end of the presentation, he had a great slide that said every single city ought to have a two-word rule, and it's pedestrians first. It was really interesting, but great program.
Great. John? All right, city manager reports.
We're going to start out with a presentation by Jeffrey Guston from S2O, and we've got some progress reports on the the River Sport Rapids project. That's hard for me to get out. River Sports Rapids. Jeffrey, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm going to give you a quick update on where we are with the Whitewater project. Starting off, I'm just going to walk you through kind of a current timeline of the activities to date. We're roughly about 35% through our contract with the extensions of change orders 1 through 5. The latest change orders being the addition of the 2 river light pole foundations as well as the kayak building on the east side of the site. So we're about 35% through our contract. If you look at the progress chart here, it's a little misnomer. There's a lot of bars up at the top going 100%. Those are early bond or mobilization bond and early mobilization issues. For the most part, utilities are about 75 to 80%. Buildings are in the 10 to 15% range, and obviously the focus has been on the dirt and the concrete, which is about 35% on the channels itself. This is an overview picture that was taken about 40 days ago, posted in the Oklahoman. Does a good job of just giving you a big, broad picture of what's going on with the site, and you can see all the gray stuff, that's the concrete, and all the dirt, and you're going to see that for quite some time yet. Most of the work, again, it started in the lower pool, bottom pool for the Whitewater course, and is working east to west, and you'll see the red area just above that. It's a 5th Street. That is all the import that's coming in to fill the course as it works its way back to the east, and then the pump station as well to the east. I'll get a little more detail for you here following. On the pump station, again, working from east to west, this is essentially where we started construction. It's the lowest point on the site. The mud slab was poured essentially in November of last year. Quickly behind that, we started foundations and pouring the exterior walls to the pump station. The small picture is about 40 days ago, and then the large picture is last week. What you're seeing now on the current slide is essentially the 3 main walls around the pump station going to the first level of the pump station. It's a 2-story volume. And the interior wall, there's 5 of those, divides the intake structure into 6 individual chambers, which the water filters through, hits the pumps, and then goes vertical. So you're seeing that, and they're continuing that construction. Probably have the rest of the walls probably done within the next 2 to 3 weeks. On to our next slide. This is dropping back a little bit, looking south to the pump station, so you're seeing the north wall of the pump station. And what I wanted to get across in this picture is just how much dirt's being pulled into the site. If you can see on would be the left-hand side of the image, there looks to be a job trailer up on the side. 3 feet above that is the final grade. So we've got quite a bit of dirt yet to pull in. If you look at that trailer, that's essentially where the kayak building will go. So we've got about another 10 foot of dirt that we'll be pulling in over the next few months. And go into the channel a bit. Quite a lot of activity here in the channel. Again, this is the conveyor inlet, which sits just south of the pump station, in between the pump station and the river. So what you're seeing in the foreground on the larger picture is that initial intake structure for the conveyor. That conveyor essentially parallels the river and goes all the way to the upper pond. These are 2 images that were taken about a month ago, just kind of patched together, looking from basically where Lincoln Boulevard connects is the top vision, going all the way from north, wrapping around to the south. You can see essentially the extent of the activity that's going on site. The contractor has divided the site into about 6 micro projects. And this is kind of key because we essentially have 6 different superintendents on site working 6 individual projects with a superintendent over all of this. We've got one for essentially all site activities, all dirt movement essentially, utilities, one for the pump station, one for the conveyor inlet, the channels, and then the building. So it's actually quite interesting to go out there and see every different piece of this coming up together and the coordination that's going into it. The bottom picture is looking on against you from the north side of the site, so from 5th Street, and you're seeing all the grade that's coming up there. Again, on the left side of the site, that is still yet to be elevated about another 10 feet. We are bringing in the import. We have begun to bring the import in from Oliver Park site. Probably about a month now. We're about 10% through that import, and that'll probably go on for about another 4 to 5 months. Jumping to the next slide. This essentially is just the recirculating HDPE, high-density polyethylene pipe that goes around the cores. I'll show that a little bit further in, but this piping system essentially recirculates filtered, treated water back into the system, which is something different than what we had done in Charlotte, where we did not do something like this. Going to the next slide. A little more on the channels themselves. Essentially, our first pour on the channel was about 60 days ago. And what we've accomplished over the last 60 days has been 4 pours. Actually, the 4th pour of the channel is being done this morning. Each pour is about 125 feet wide, 160 feet long, so about 500 cubic yards. And they're building essentially in sections. Each section of channel goes into the expansion joint, and then they come back in a later date and pour the north and south retaining walls. So it's a bit of a highway operation as they're moving forward. So today they're through the 4th pour. The 5th pour of the channel will be the last large section of the bottom pool before we actually get into the channels themselves and start heading back up to the east. That'll happen next week. Moving on to the next slide. This is 2 pictures, one again about 40 days ago and one from last week. This is the pool ramp that comes down from the main pedestrian pad at the main building, and there's essentially a drivable ramp for small vehicles to get inside that lower pond. Another picture looking at the pond back towards the east, so you can see way in the background some cranes. That's the pump station, and then you're seeing the north wall of the lower pool here. And this again is about a 30 to 40 day old photo. The next one you're going to see the backfill starting to go in. So there's, again, it's a huge dirt operation, and it has to be done in stages because of the way the channels are built, one on top of the other. You have to kind of work from north to south and then from west to east. On the next slide, that's basically turning the camera around and looking back to the west. So you're seeing the framework starting here for slab pour, which is going in this morning. Quite a bit of reinforcing going in. This particular section is a monument milestone for us because it's the first section that will actually have the unistrut anchoring system for the future obstacles. On the next slide, a little more detail on that anchoring system. It's essentially a rebar system in itself that's suspended on top of the rest of the rebar, and it holds up these unistrut, these metal channels that receive an anchoring system for the rapid blocks. A little more detail on this, and this is how you can, if you've ever seen rebar being tied and appreciate how much effort goes into it, we have 2 rebar systems on top of one another. Then on top of that, another essentially rebar system being the unistrut. Just quite a bit of pre-prep activity going in before you even get the concrete into the project. This happens right now in sections. Once we get through the first turn into the channels, that unistrut you see there actually goes the entire length of both channels up to the top pond. It allows essentially the rapid blocks to be configured in multiple configurations to the operations. The next slide is a test panel to the left showing what that unistrut will look like once the concrete's poured. Essentially, they screed the concrete flush with the top of the unistrut. Each one of those channels is open that receives an anchoring bolt. That to the right on the picture, essentially those are the rapid blocks and how they would be configured in the channel. This is the next pour. This is the 5th pour of the channel, so we're just above channel from the unistrut. Again, this will be the last large pour, and then we'll start to get into the individual channel sections. Going back to the previous slide I had shown indicating the large pipe on site, this is kind of the receiving end on this. You can see on the slide the pipe is now inside the slab. This piping system starts from the pump station. It is essentially treated with ozone, filtered, and then there's a residual chlorination in it. It's returned on both sides of the bottom pool to the slab itself in the bottom pool, so you're recirculating chlorinated water there. This piping also extends up the channels about a third of the way and is actually injected back into the system through the sidewalls as well. Our next slide deals with some of the vertical features that are overlapping the channel. And these pictures here are of the bridge abutments for the bridge and ramps going in on the site. This is the western bridge. So what you're looking at in the foreground on the larger picture, if you were standing at the pedestrian pad from the main building, that is essentially the structure for the ramp as well as the first bridge abutment going into the competition channel. On our next slide, this is a bit skewed, but this is standing on the very prow of the main building, so back to the river, looking at the main building. Again, the perspective's a little crunched, but what we have here is all the foundations are in, all the grade beams are in, anchor bolts for the vertical steel. We are about 80%, 90% through the rough-in, under slab rough-in for plumbing, electrical. That's scheduled to be done here in the next few weeks, and then slab behind that and structural steel right behind that. A little more detail on the rough-in. This was taken from last week, so you're seeing some of that plumbing coming up through the slab, the grease interceptors in, all your plumbing lines. And as I said, we should be completing this portion of the work within the next week, and then the actual floor slab within 2 weeks. And then just quickly, just kind of a forecast of what's to come over the next 30 days. Again, excavation for the site. We've pretty much pulled everything out of the site we're pulling out, so no more unforeseen conditions as far as the debris that we found on the site in earlier months. Most of it now is fill. We're bringing that fill in from the Oliver Park site. Again, we're about 10% complete with that. Most of that fill right now is going in to backfill the pump station, as well as the lower pool, the north and south walls. Utilities, OG&E is running the primary feed. The focus is to get SP4 up and running, which is the relocated existing feed that feeds the irrigation line out there for the system. We're shooting to have that done early April. And then they'll continue their lines along Phillips and then down 5th Street. HDP channel, that essentially, or channel piping, we talked about that. That's recirculating chlorination piping. The fire line and water lines are about 80% complete. And now we're working on the sanitary sewer system going into the pump station. Main building, we've already talked about that. Mostly rough-ins and slab, and structural steel will start within about 30 to 40 days. The pump station itself, again, we'll have the interior walls done within the next couple weeks. Within a month, we'll be on the second floor slab. So at that point, we're going to be starting our second level pours. That'll probably take about another 3 to 4 months. The structural tubes for the pumps will be on site within a month and a half, and those will be installed. The conveyor system as well, owner procured, will be on site with I'd say about the end of May is kind of what we're focusing there. The channels, we've kind of went through that, as well as the bottom ramp. We'll continue the bridge foundations, go on to the inner islands, and we've been coordinating with the boathouse on some issues that they're bringing to it, the stage and some coordinations with structural elements there. And as far as the owner-provided equipment, filters are on site. They've been on site and are in a container. They've been there for about 2 months. The conveyor, again, scheduled for mid-May, and the pump tubes the end of May. That concludes the update. Take any questions?
Just a comment, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for being willing to make Oklahoma City your second home. I know you're spending a lot of time here, and it feels like we're in really good hands. This is a complicated project. I drove by it yesterday, obviously, on the way down to Norman, and it just was a beehive of activity.
It is. It's hard to understand it in just a quick swag of it, but the boathouse did install a site camera that I think they're having some connection issues with it right now, but they are posting it on their website, so I encourage anyone to, it's a one static, it's a dynamic line, but it's one view, and it's looking essentially from the job trailers out towards the channels, and it runs 24/7. It's an easy way to kind of see what's going on out there.
You know, reinforced concrete and hydraulics, it just doesn't get much better than that, does it?
One question, you know, when you have that double reinforced concrete, that's to help minimize any cracking or any problems that may be created. Do you ever develop cracks in that concrete when you pour it in that?
You can't pour concrete without it cracking. That's the nature of the beast. However, the system we have is actually an additive called Hycrete, so it makes it a watertight design. We have control joints as well as the reinforcing designed to encourage the cracking in certain locations. It will crack. And we have preparations for surface cracking as well, how to deal with that, clean it up. There's sealant that we put in as well. So it is expected to crack. We just try to anticipate where those cracks are.
And our Oklahoma red clay helps with that, doesn't it?
To some degree. We've got a variety of sand to clay out there, and the compaction is critical. We've had high standards for that, and Downey's been very good about keeping that. The control of the site has been something to be proud of, I would say. It's been a good job so far.
All right, any other questions? All right, thanks very much.
And lastly, we have the sales tax collection report for March. David, you were asking about that last night. And it was a good month for us again. It was 3.9% over last year. And year to date, we're just right on target, within 0.5% of target of where we thought we'd be. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? All right, we have executive session. We'll be back. Oh, citizens to be heard? Okay. We'll be back after executive session.